Hey, everybody, this is Pastor Rick. Glad you're with us today. Honored to have you. And we are here for our Prosperity Circle, our conversation. Hundreds of you join us, and we thank you for being with us, and many more join us on demand. I believe that a church needs to be able to talk about money, have that conversation about finances. And this has been that place where we do that. So we do this once a month, and we're really thankful that you're with us. And we are looking forward to our conversation. Ms. Bishop is with me today. And we want to have you get ready to write your questions in the chat. I'm going to talk tonight about what I did wrong, financial conversations. What has gone right and wrong for me in these last several years of my life, 45 years of pastoring. You know, this is my 50th year, Ms. Bishop. This is the 50th year I've been preaching. Yeah, it is. 1976, I started preaching, and I was born in Savannah. I can always say that, raised in Los Angeles. And for 50 years, from 17 on, I've been preaching the gospel. Amazing. Isn't that pretty amazing?
That really is pretty amazing. 50 years, yeah.
And you know, it's really funny. The same year that I started preaching was the same year this church started. And I didn't know the church. I had no connection at all. But God knew that we'd have the same birthday, 50 years of preaching. So we celebrate on October 30th and November 30th, 31st, and November 1st. We're having our big shebang that weekend, celebrating 50 years of walking by faith. That's what I call it. 50 years of walking by faith and watching God bless us in amazing ways. Yeah, good stuff. So
it's amazing. Your one word of walking by faith. It's been what's one of the most amazing experiences you've had in 50 years.
God provides when you don't see a way. I mean. I wish I could say we just planned financially perfectly. We made all the right choices. We didn't. We ran into roadblocks and all kinds of things, and God provided. So I must say it's been a pretty amazing ride, and I'm thankful and happy and thrilled that we made it. So
now you said before, with all of your college education and going to seminary, Bible college, and all of that stuff, that they didn't teach you anything about money. So you just kind of learned it in real time, on the job training?
Pretty much. Hey, let me say this real quick. Brian, this background is going to work me over. It's moving. You see it moving? Give me something stable, my man, if you can switch it. It's moving on me. I feel like I'm floating in the river. There you go. The man is he's a miracle worker.
Oh.
Yeah, I start seeing stars. Anyway, your question was what again? Say it one more time.
What you've learned about money in terms of managing finances. I know you have your personal finances, but you've led a corporation, business, whatever the right term is for church, and there's a lot of money management and responsibilities with that. What has that been like over the last 50 years?
Hunger and trying to learn. I'm still learning. I think it takes a long time to get sense. It takes a long time. I mean, most people, they may manage 45,000, 50,000, a little bit. When you manage millions of dollars over the years, you really learn a lot about yourself, hiring staff, paying staff, all that comes with corporate living. And this is corporate living. I mean, there's a lot to deal with. And I learned a lot through trial and error, but hunger, hired some really great people that helped me, bringing in outside educators. It's a great financial firm that reviews our money every month. That really, I love this great line. When I first learned, I didn't know how to read a balance sheet, cash flow, profit, loss sheet, all that stuff, trial balances. Who knows what all that was? Didn't know anything about GAAP, general accounting practices. And so a good friend of mine who became this great mentor, and also their company still reviews our books every month, and they get what's called a pastor's report. And I remember she was showing me how to read a balance sheet. She said, well, how much money do you have? And I said, $100,000. She says, you poor soul. No, you don't. You have 50,000. You don't have what you think you have. And it was just that moment where they started as a group teaching me how all this works. And it really helped me. So a lot of it I learned. I wish, and I've said this to college professors and presidents, that I wish they taught it. And there's some are starting to do it. My alma mater, Life Pacific University, is doing more of it. But I think you need to really have, as a matter of fact, they have a business major now, I think. And so I think it's really important I know they do because that's right. One of the young ladies that spoke to me, they called the fundraise. They called me and says, "Would you like to give to your college?" You know, and I do every month faithfully, and I just might give back to them. But she has a degree. Girl called me just the other day to ask me to increase my pledge. Told me
Nice.
she has a business degree, MBA, as a matter of fact. I thought, all right, go ahead. Yeah. So I think it's a good thing to help guys like me. If you stumble into success, you understand the business side of it. And because I didn't understand, I didn't see opportunities like to build wealth. And we're going to, I guess, talk about that tonight a little bit. But I didn't understand wealth development. I understood how to raise an offering. And I really didn't understand that. You see, so I thought, we're going to prosper because we raise offerings. And I was sort of focused on, all right, I want to inspire you people to give. And I realized that if you're raising the offering for today, you're in trouble. If you need the money today, you need to be raising money for the future. And that's a whole lot of wealth development thinking. That's why I did the Prosperity Circle, because I wanted to create a conversation around wealth that was healthy.
Well, that what you said you wanted to talk about tonight, and good evening again to everyone. I don't even know if I spoke, but this is our last session before we go on summer break, and we'll be on break. But that is one of the questions that I wanted to ask and have you to recap for us again tonight is why you just seem to be really committed to this Prosperity Circle. And, we did a review of all the books and all the speakers and that kind of thing. We've been inundated with a lot of information that you've shared. And you indicated that tonight you wanted to talk about money lessons that you've learned. But so why did you develop the Prosperity Circle, and what's the real purpose that you see for, those of us that are part of the circle, and why you are so committed to it?
Well, let me say this first of all, because I'm going to answer the question, I promise. But let me say, this is Sheila Bishop. She's our church administrator. And so she's always in the thick of everything. And she's by trade, in addition to being a master's degree. What's your master's in?
I have a master's in biblical studies.
I thought so. Smart girl. And she has a what in nursing? You are a what?
I have I'm a registered nurse. I have a bachelor's degree in science in nursing.
I just amazing. And she was the manager of nurses. She's being really humble, but she really came to us in 2006 or 6, and she's been amazing. So anyway,
6 officially, but we had the long 2005 to 2006.
That's
interview.
A drop-in comment, unnecessary, but you dropped it in. The longest interview of her career, she said, 1 year. We talked a lot just to see if she fits. She fits pretty good. Here we go. Why did I develop the Prosperity Circle? Well, I did it because I felt that there was not enough conversation about money. Anything that you're going to do well, you have to make it part of your routine. It has to be part of your life. And I think I'm learning that. So the question is, what do I want us to be? I'm not Sheila. I've got a new book, right? I do.
It's not a surprise.
But the book I think we're going to read over this summer is called Your Desired Future. Your Desired Future by Henry Cloud. Your Desired Future. Sorry, Brian, I didn't tell you earlier. I just, decided to drop it in. Your Desired Future. How do you get to your desired future? What do you do to get there? And he gives these 5 ways you get there. And I think I've sniffed them out. So he talks about having vision. He talks about having talent. He talks about having strategy. He talks about having a plan. And he talks about having accountability. I'm saying it again. He talks about having a vision. He talks about having a talent, right? He talks about having a strategy. He talks about having a plan, and talks about having accountability. Just really, I'm enjoying it because my vision for the church, if I were to use this book as a guide, my vision.
He's a good author too.
Yeah, he's really good. He's a great guy too in person. He's really a good dude.
Oh, okay.
But part of it, I've been fortunate to be around him a few times, and part of what I think is interesting is My vision for us is that we would be financially empowered, because finance gives you the power to do things on your own. It gives you the power to help people. And we do a lot of amazing things, both publicly and privately, that really are impressive. But it takes money and resources to do it. And so my vision is for us to pull together the talent and pull together the information we need. So this circle is where we can just have that free conversation and talk about wealth development. I think churches assume that you can do what we want to do with just asking for offerings, and I don't know that that's true. As a matter of fact, let me just make an astonishing statement. I think the tithing effort has failed in churches. 70% of members don't tithe in our church, and that's high. 30% do, but that's high. That's a high number of people. And if you're in a house and you have 10 people live in the house, 7 don't work, basically. They don't give anything to contribute. It's a very difficult thing to survive. Most churches are miraculously surviving. And even a church like ours is doing well, because again, another fact, this is a little fact here, 9% of businesses get above $1 million in revenues, 9%. 3% or so get beyond 3 million. Even in business, people don't have much revenue stream. It's very hard to get to multiple millions of dollars, especially in a nonprofit. So my point is, I wanted to create an atmosphere where we can talk about money and plan to build more wealth, because I want to do more work. So you have to have wealth to do that.
So the way you frame that, are you saying the prosperity circle is to build more wealth within the church, or could you connect an individual component to that?
I think it's all of the above. I think it's putting it in the atmosphere. I think you're putting the whole conversation of wealth. I think, for example, in a family, if you never talk about money in your family and wealth development in your family, how we're going to, buy a home, don't sell it, build equity, save, all that. That was really, to be honest, Sheila, not even part of my own family conversation, because my religious orientation worked against that. My religious orientation said, given it shall be given you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Luke, 6:38, the verse I just preached on, right, this past weekend. Mm-hmm. It's really, I was not in the mindset that when I buy a home, I keep it and hold on to it and take the equity and buy more homes. I was oriented to spread the word, preach, teach. And, we did well, but we could have done better if we built more wealth. And that's what I understand now. I understand that it's wealth development. It's not just having money. If you have money, that's one thing. If you have wealth, that's another. Money is you get a paycheck and you're in W-2 and you are 1099 or whatever, and you got wealth and somebody paid you. But when you have money, wealth is you have resources when you sleep. I don't have to go to work. It just comes to me for free. That's wealth. And I think that learning how to get that is something that people struggle with, and especially churches. I think religious people are almost anti-wealth because we use the verse incorrectly. The love of money in Timothy is a root of all evil. No, so it is the love of money. It is when money is your, the word phileo, the idea is you made it your everything, your best friend. Yeah, that's a problem. But money is a defense, and wealth is a greater defense. You have the ability to protect yourself. When you have your own home, you have your own car, you have your own resources. If I needed $1,000 a day, I don't have to borrow from anybody. I can go and ask Diane for it and get $1,000.
That's great. Based on some of the statistics that you just mentioned in terms of, the percentage of individuals that don't tithe, and the tithing being one of the main funding sources, where do you see the future of the church and money? What is the future of the church and money?
They're in trouble. They're in trouble, especially if they have these expensive buildings and properties. A friend of mine told me one time, he said, there's a fight between media ministry, television expansion, outreach, evangelism, and the facilities. And the facilities always win. You got to have a place to stay. It's very difficult. And then let's see another fact that's really fascinating, Sheila. 90% of African-American pastors are bivocational. 9 out of 10. It's a high number. So
is that because they don't believe in full-time ministry or can't afford it or what?
No, you can't afford it. I don't think it's because they don't desire it, but a lot of guys I know desire it. The challenge is they don't have cash. See, it's one thing. It's one thing to have a passion. It's another thing to have the resources to carry out that passion.
Mm-hmm.
So the percentage of supporters in a church determine what the church is able to do. And and I think even when you have success at every level, the percentages follow you up the train. It's very difficult, especially if you have a lot of overhead. That's where the buildings and all that become a challenge, because creating long-term debt for yourself where you have high leverage, it's just like that in business. The guy who wrote, what's his name? Oh man, we read his books, Financial Peace. What's his name? That guy.
Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's story is interesting because he talks about how he went bankrupt. You know how he went bankrupt? He was highly leveraged.
Okay.
So he became a millionaire early in life, and he bought a lot of homes and stuff. And then when the decline came, he did not have enough resources. He was over leveraged. So they called the loan and he couldn't pay it back because he bought too many homes and he didn't have enough cushion. Now, if he's an example of a guy that can bounce back. Churches tend to have a lot of property but no cash. They tend to be, and then if they get too big of a facility, they get too much debt, they end up being leveraged too high and they can't bounce back. So I think the key is to find a way to balance those two out.
Regarding bivocational, did you have a period when you first started at Overcoming by Faith or pastoring to be full-time, or was there a period where you were bivocational?
When I first came to pastor the church, the advantage I had was I was young, 22 years old, real young. So you when you're that young, 22, 23, and you don't have any kids, and it's just you and your wife, you're like, in the wild, wild west, you can do what you want, right? And I pieced together income. The church paid me $150 a week when I started, and they couldn't afford to give me housing, so I stayed with my mother-in-law for the first 6 months. And when I moved from Charlotte, when I graduated from college, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. The denomination I was part of at the time said, we'll move you to Charlotte. We want you to start a church. And they just didn't have the great infrastructure. So I ended up saying, no, I'm not going to start a church in Charlotte because I couldn't even find my way around Charlotte, even though I love Charlotte and I love the people in Charlotte. And Charlotte's turned out to be a great city. But I said, I want to go a place where I love the people. I was born here and I'd come back and forth here. I'd been 2 years of high school here. So I had some love for the city. And would pray for the city, would pray for a revival in the city. As a matter of fact, when I was in college, in our missions class, you had to pick some place to pray for, right? For God to bring revival. I used to pray for God to bring revival in Savannah.
Okay.
Never knowing I'd be the guy who came to be a part of whatever happens here. So anyway, when I called my mother-in-law and said, look, I'm here in Charlotte. They want me to start this church in Charlotte. I don't want to do that. I think it's not a place I need to stay. I want to go a place I love. I'm going to come to Savannah and start a church. She said, no, take this one. So I came to Savannah. And it was a great move for me, and I'm dancing to the river. What was your original question? I'm getting carried away in my story. What was your original question? I really am.
You being bivocational. And,
okay, right. So
yeah.
right. So I went down. I came in town, and I had some preaching offers, and so I preached a little bit and made about $1,000 or so a month, preaching around, and that was good back then, right? And then, but that ran out, and I realized I had to do something. And I was staying with my mother-in-law, and I had to give her a certain amount. And I was just going to make sure I wasn't living there for free. And then there was, what was it? I got a job. I was looking for jobs, and there was jobs downtown, rolling barrels. Dan told me, please don't get no rolling barrel job. Even if she didn't want me to do that, right? So I went to this grocery store, and I used to bag groceries when I was in high school. So there was a job stocking shelves. I've always liked the stocking shelves, imaginary job. You do the thing on the cans and all, and so I got a job. I needed to get money together because Diane was pregnant at the time, and Ricky was going to be born in July. So I had to get this job, and I worked for 6 months. working bagging groceries. No, about 4 or 5 months, and full time. And I made enough to get the down payment for our first apartment, 1 bedroom, at English Oaks apartment off Abercorn. By the way, it was English Oaks at the time, and we moved in on the day Diane came home from the hospital,
Nice.
and haven't looked back. So that was my bivocational moment and period. After that, the church gave me a whopping, drum roll, $50 raise. Whew, I was
One time, at one time.
One time, Diane said, "How do you get a?" That she knows it's amazing. She doesn't remember this. I do. I'm scarred for life with this. She said, "Who gets a $50 a week raise?" I said, "Me." You just met the man. So that, but that plus being good stewards, it worked out, and we were fine.
One of the this is a little bit of an awkward question, but I think you get it, is could you talk a little bit about the link between giving to the church and my personal wealth development? You have mentioned several times wealth development, and I'm sure a lot of us, in the circle, is we understand what you mean when you say talk about some of the percentages as far as giving to church and that kind of thing, but it's individuals that give to the church. And so this whole idea of wealth development, and talk about giving to the church in terms of our individual responsibility for that.
Well, I think people don't realize God's system for wealth is linked to certain things. So, for example, in the Levitical systems, Numbers chapter 18, verse 21 said, "I give to the Levites all the tithes in Israel as their inheritance."
What chapter is that again?
This is Leviticus 18:21.
Okay.
He says, "I give to the Levites all the tithe in Israel as their inheritance in return for the work, real slow, in return for the work they do while serving in the tent of meeting." In other words, I link New Testament says the laborer is worthy of his hire, right? And so, I think that the Bible links, especially for those of us in ministry, our work to our pay, right? And I think it's important to understand that that's how it works. That's just the system that God put in place. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 17 says that the elders who direct the affairs of the church are worthy of double honor, especially those who preach and teach. For scripture says, "Do not muzzle an ox which is treading out the grain." That's 1 Timothy 5:17. So in my life, and this is something I had to get used to, God links my wealth and my blessing to what I do. But there are limits to that, in my opinion. I don't think all the money goes to me or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But if I make sure I'm understanding your question, you're talking about
me as a tither, me as a giver, as a believer, and in terms of building wealth development, is that an important part of what I should be doing in order to build wealth, or are they tied together?
I think all of us is tied together.
Okay.
God has linked it together. If you look in scripture, he's linked our actions with our reward, our labor. I just did this study in Luke chapter, Genesis 2:15. He said, "Till the ground." He told Adam and Eve. And I never noticed that he was talking about till the ground, because in the future, you're going to have to grow your own harvest. I'm not going to just give it to you free. This is not going to just be a free zone. And that has always been God's plan, that man would work. Agriculture was a big part of the early part of the world's history, and that's a part of how God plans things. You reap what you sow. In the New Testament, Jesus emphasized the same principle. So,
and I think there's an interesting approach that some individuals, I don't critique it. Like I said, I understand there's another whole backside to, raising money and trying to get what you need. But, the $50 line, the $100 line, if you give to this, you're going to get this. I don't know that, or maybe you'd be better to speak to it. Is that a wealth building plan?
No, that's desperation.
Okay.
That's desperation. And I understand it. I mean, that's why I was getting only give them $100, because I understand not only I can afford it, thank God, but I realize what they're trying to do. They're desperate. Generally, what happens is you create this thing called church, and we put this together This is not a God design. God did not tell us to start at 9:45 and have church at 11 o'clock and all that. That's us trying to honor God. And it costs money. It's expensive. The challenge is oftentimes the people who enjoy it don't support it. So you have 7 people in the house, like I said, don't work. You have 10 people living in the house, 7 don't work. So it's really difficult. And then some churches, there's 9 in the house not working. 1 person, 2 persons working. They do all the giving. They do all the serving. It's 25% of people volunteer in the church. I mean, this is really interesting that a few people carry it all. Jesus said, the labors are few, right? The harvest is plentiful. So that's been true for a long time. So anyway, I just think it's for me, understanding that they work together.
Okay.
Wealth
Because I mean,
development.
we've come through that era of the money coming to me and, all those things. And as opposed to, you talk about wealth development, maybe that's just a perfect segue into that is when you talk about wealth development, what is it and what was your process for developing wealth? How,
Well,
talk about how you learned to do that.
well, let me tell you what I missed. There are opportunities I missed because I didn't understand it. We have been blessed to own quite a bit of property, but we could have owned quite a lot more. And if I understood wealth development, I would have invested more, and that's what we're doing now. We're taking a different look at a number of things that we've done with real estate, a number of things we've done with money, how we raise money, how we fund future events. We're looking at where we fund all of the things we do for the community. Some of it can be granted out as grants. Some of it can be done through other fundraising options, and being more intentionally strategic and doing it well in advance so that we're more organized. Wealth development requires strategy, requires planning, and comfort. Big word, comfort. Comfort with the conversation, and comfort with inviting people in that can help you think and strategize. For example, if I could go back to 2005 and have a conversation with myself or with our staff, I would say, do not build a 75,000 square foot building. I would say, and this would be hard to hear, keep the building you have, don't add any more building space. That would have been hard to hear because we were growing so fast. And it would have been hard to understand, focus on wealth development. It would sound like we copped out and we were all in the money and didn't care about people. That wasn't what we were saying. The ability to minister to people requires stability, requires wealth, requires resources. We just didn't have, in my opinion, the cash margins that we needed. We were strong in income. We were growing all the time, and they were giving more. But in 2007, 8, they gave more than they'd ever given, especially in special project money. But the problem was the dream, the vision, the wanting to build a pool, wanting to have some of the things that, we had big drawings of all these, like almost a Disney World kind of thing. We're not competing with Disney. Staying focused and staying aimed at the bigger picture and understanding that wealth development wouldn't have been a bad thing. And as a matter of fact, that's what's helped save us. Many churches have been saved because they own property and assets they could sell, things that they could do.
So wealth development by definition is
it's basically putting together a strategy to build resources that can fund your future. You're building assets that grow on their own. You buy real estate, you sometimes have a business that kind of takes off and allows you to create extra resources. You have renters, you have some churches have various businesses, but generally it's a very narrow focus. It's offerings, tithes, special funds, special fundraisers, selling food, selling clothes, stuff like that. And a lot of that's just, it doesn't have the scalability to get you $2, $3, $4, $5 million. You know what I'm saying? You can't even get $1 million. Most churches don't get to that point. Like 9% get to that place. So my point is, it's really hard because they can't even have a wealth development conversation. If there are opportunities in their neighborhood, if there are opportunities that are coming up, maybe the neighborhood needs a gas station. The church couldn't open one because the church doesn't have that kind of mindset. If it's in a food desert, right? Well, why don't the church open up a food place? In LA, there are lots of places that are food desert, even in our town. So if a church owns property in that area, why can't you open a store? What is there a way that you can meet that need and maybe also help the community?
Okay.
Now,
So
let me,
have you ever, can you talk about your own personal struggle with the whole idea of being wealthy?
yeah, I will. Let me say this before I jump into that part. You can give your questions if you're listening and you just want to ask me a question. It's the time to be nosy. Feel free, jump in and ask a question about this whole conversation
We
about
we do
wealth.
have Jewel. She said on the Leviticus 18:21, she said that's a t-shirt worthy of a t-shirt. Say it again. She said, and then she added that just because they enjoy it doesn't mean they support it. How did you say that?
Jewel, you're right. You're right. And by the way, I saw your cool video of you making great progress. I'm proud of you, by the way. Just throwing that in there, Joel, for you. That was a cool video. But as far as yeah, a lot of people don't support. They like watching. They're not willing to really do anything with it. With wealth development, or they're not willing to share. I mean, but let me say this to you. I don't know that I blame people sometimes. If I can be candid here for a minute. To me, if you, why would you invest in something that's not really showing you what they're doing already? You don't know what the churches are doing with the money. You don't know where they're going. You don't know what the vision is. You don't know what the strategy is. Basically, the strategy is church every
You
Sunday.
being obedient to what you think you're supposed to be doing.
Well, but obedient to go where? I mean, you're obedient to come and have church in the building and dance around with fancy clothes on. I mean, I think if that's all we're doing, I think that people don't see that as a good investment. And so sometimes that's why they don't give. That's not the best reasoning, but I think that could be for some people why they don't give. But you asked the question, you said, what about me in terms of wealth?
In terms of, did you ever struggle with the basic concept of being wealthy?
Well, yeah, I did. And that's why I didn't pursue it at a high level. And some may struggle with it. Yes, you did. You're doing better than most people. Yeah, but I didn't. I could be 3-4 times where I am. But part of my problem was I had limits. And there's a term I use is called lifting the limits, where you lifted the limits in people's thinking. I love John Maxwell's book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And in that book, he talks about the law of the lid, that there's a lid placed over you by those people that you follow. I had a $45,000 maximum excitement level of income vision. I did. And when I got to $45,000, I was just terrified, almost emotionally paralyzed. It's like, oh my God. Really, I remember when I got to 20,000, I was, oh my God. I mean, matter of fact, I called a pastor friend of mine and offered to share some of it with him. I mean, I was just really, no, sure I did. I really did. I said, man, I got to make 20,000. Lord, keep blessing me. I'm going to give you some of this. I did. I said to a pastor friend. And then they misunderstood that. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, I think what's interesting is if you're not raised, that's why this conversation we're having is so important. If you're not raised in an environment where wealth discussion is easy and comfortable, you will tend to resist it, and you'll tend to struggle with it, and you misdefine things. So as a pastor, based on the book I just mentioned, The Law of the Lid, if I've got a $45,000 limit, so does my membership.
Oh, okay.
And I won't ever pay anybody more than $45,000. So if I got a $70,000 limit, guess what? That's the law of the lid. And I'll never be able to hire anybody $70,000. And so on. And I think that the goal is to lift the lid so that we all can believe that he can do abundantly above all we can ask or think.
Jewel also, she says the people who want to be a 100-gallon bucket, you're going to be discouraged if you have a pastor that's only at a 5-gallon, So in terms of applying the law of the lid, I can't exceed where that person is. I like that.
I like that 5-gallon and 100-gallon. I love that. That's a great, it's very visual. I can see that for sure. Yeah.
Pastor Rick, in one of the verses that you've mentioned, we even kind of talked about Luke 6:38, where it talks about, give and getting this return from God. Were you ever challenged with applying that verse to yourself? It emphasizes that whole idea of generosity toward others and, be generous and you get back.
I think what's missing, and when you look at the whole verse. Let me get my Bible here for a minute. You ever pull your Bible out? It's really great. Good old Bible, right?
Good old Bible.
Good old Bible. But, I every now and then I love this Bible too. By the way, it's Tony Evans' Bible.
Tony Evans.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's a good Bible. He did a good job on it. 638. And
Luke
in
6:38.
Yeah, right. And so love your enemies. And he talks about all this stuff about. But I say to you, whoever listens, love your enemies, do what's good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and so on. If anything, when hits you on the cheek, turn. So it's really quoting the Beatitudes, right? It's kind of like the Beatitude version in Luke. But in Luke 6:38, he says, do not judge, and you will not be judged. Again, and then verse 38 says, give, and it will be given. It's this proverbial kind of rant that Jesus goes on, where the authors go on that emphasize key principles. So giving and prospering, which is what this verse promises, is not just talking about giving money and getting money back. I think it's more than that. I think it's having the spirit of a giver. Given it shall be given. Give time. What I give to my wife, it's amazing. I get it back. And I love the way he said the measure that you measure. Right. I don't think I've got do I have? I don't have one here. I used to have a ruler at my desk. But given it shall be given, shaken together, running over. There's something about understanding that what I give out, I get in return. Kindness. But I do believe that it links to money as well. That if I'm a wealth development minded person and I give myself to that, it returns itself. I get wealth back. So paying attention to the stock market, paying attention to investments, paying attention education, giving myself to education. It has paid great dividends to me. Just doing that.
Okay. So are you clearly saying from a biblical model? I know we've created a lot of things ourselves, but from a biblical model, wealth building is okay, acceptable, and promoted.
Exactly. It's hard to find a broke person in the Bible. You have to look, you go through the list. Was Adam and Eve broke? No. Was Moses broke? Definitely not. Was Elijah broke? None of these guys, they weren't broke people. And Jacob, Esau, Joseph, none of these guys were broke. When they came to see Joseph, they brought money to buy. They had money. They weren't broke people. And so and they own their stuff. I think I said the other day in church, I was talking about Abraham. He had 318 trained servants. He grew up in his house. And I said, how many rooms do you have to have 318 people living with you?
The big tent. A big tent.
It's the big complex is what it is.
Yes.
And and so I think it's important. And I think if you give yourself to wealth development, it'll come back to you pressed down, shaking together, and running over. I think there's something about giving yourself to education, giving yourself to physical fitness, to exercise. I'm in this new workout program, right? I've been hurting all day, by the way. I have been. Pray for me. Not hurting, but I'm aware. I go back to work out again tomorrow, so it's 3 days a week. And so, but as I give myself to it, it will give me back health. And I feel it. I do. And I think it's important and that's why I decided, I'll tell you something, Sheila, it's a side observation here. What you give yourself to, you have to come up with a list and say, okay, what do I want? That's why I like this new book that I mentioned earlier that I'm really enjoying. It's by Henry Cloud. The one is called, one more time, Your Desired Future.
Your Desired Future.
Yeah, by Henry Cloud. Part of what I've learned is I had to come up with a list of what I wanted. So here's what I wanted. I wanted to be spiritually solid, right? So I need spiritual development. I wanted to be healthy physically. I wanted to be financially stable. I wanted a solid relationship with my wife, a relationship to be solid with my wife, with my children, I wanted friends. So I give in my church, my job, I wanted to be faithful, reliable. And so I gave myself to those things. I want to write more, and I've given myself to writing. There's a whole writing project I'm in the middle of, and you know that for sure. But I've given myself to it, and as I give to it, it will give back to me. Just as a sidebar, the writing project, I had this great book. I was about to release it, right? And I had this whole thing put together. And they said, well, first of all, you need to lengthen it. It needs a few more pages. Then I realized that the premise of the book It's called, for those of you who are curious, it's called Relationship Gumbo.
Mhm.
And in the book originally, it had, and I gave myself to this, right? I was feeling great about it. And it's called Relationship Gumbo, the guilt-free recipe for managing love and relationship. I think it's even on the website saying it's coming out down the road.
Mhm.
It will. And I had this idea that was in my mind. I don't want to give it away, but in my mind it was one way. But as I explored, I realized, Ricky, you need to add something to that. So I'll let you see. It's going to come out this year. That's my plan, in the fall, at the closer to homecoming, which is in October. But my point was, if I give myself to writing and give myself to the research and do the right work, it will give something back to me. So given it shall be given.
Well, another scripture that you've used is the Deuteronomy 8:18. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the power to get wealth. So it sort of highlights this whole idea of financial ability comes from God, not just from personal strength, but what are ways God has established us to get wealth?
See, that's the point is, notice he puts that in your court.
Oh, okay.
You get it.
Okay.
Right.
Till the
And
ground. Is that the
right,
concept?
exactly. He gives you the power. I'm teaching on that this weekend, by the way. And it's
Okay.
called Will You Prosper? That's the sermon. I think that a lot of people make it God's responsibility to make their life great. I don't think God cleans up your house. I don't think God washes your car. I don't think you decide. You make a list. You know, you want to be healthy, go to the gym, work out, exercise. You want to eat right. You know, you got to go to sleep. It's that if you want peace, say you're sorry, repent.
So he gives you the ability to do the things that is going to lead to a favorable outcome, or
That's always been God's plan. God
Okay.
never had this idea that somehow you just sit around and get things for free and you don't have to do anything. You're not involved in the process, and somehow it's His responsibility. I think that's a cop out. I think you're deceived. The God I serve is not like that. You know, the wife I'm married to is not like that. You know, and it's fair. I'll tell you a little sidebar. When I got married, I knew right away that I was marrying somebody who had a certain level of expectation. I did. And it really inspired me. It inspired me to be creative. It inspired me to lead. It inspired me to try. She had full faith in me. And so I couldn't let her down, you know. So and I watched God work the miracles as I gave, even down to our rent and my work and all the things. I could tell stories about how God increased my hours, increased my salary. I went and asked my boss for a raise. I'm married now, and he gave me a raise, and we had an apartment that's $440 a month. And that was everything. That was utilities, fully furnished. That was everything, and that was a lot of money back then in
It was a
1981.
lot of money. A
In
lot.
1981, yeah, it
We
was.
do have a comment question from Auntie M. What approach would you recommend for the next generation? She said, I've used your cash, credit, and control, the CCC strategy, and some of the kids get it and some haven't. And I've tried to explain this as a plan to wealth, and they say, okay, with a big smile. So what would you recommend for the next generation as it relates to the 3 C's, cash, credit, and control?
I think that, you know, some things you learn when people tell you, some things you learn after you go through your great trials of life.
Yeah.
Your job is to make them know the information. God has this great attitude. You know, I'll teach you, but I'm not responsible for you saying yes. You know, I'm not responsible. You know, whosoever will, let him come. I think parents make the mistake of trying to think that they're going to get it. You know, Jesus made a comment to the disciples. They said, why don't your disciples fast? Why don't they pray, right? He said, because I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here. Let me tell you when I learned about cash, when I needed it. When I needed it. And I'm telling you, there's nothing like needing it and can't get it. And I learned about credit by using it. Oh man, I cash advance. I said, oh, I got all the credit cards. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you something, boy. Woo, that's a bad friend. That's a bad. I say it this way. It's wonderful. I have credit cards and I have high limits and all that. But I'm gonna tell you something. It's the devil in your pocket. It's the devil in your pocket. And they don't always get that. And sad to say, our culture encourages it. And they'll find out that the greatest thing in life is control, having control of your life, having the control of your time, control of your money, being able to take care of your life. Last year was one of the most expensive years I had in regards to my home ownership. Very expensive. New roof, all kinds of stuff happened. And, God provided. We worked out. But I'm telling you, it comes from cash. It comes from having some resources. It comes from saving. And it made me realize I need to do even more of it. I need to be more committed to it, more determined to do it in my mind, a weekly basis, often as I can. I'm less likely to ignore the margins. My cash margins were too low, but you learn that through experience. So sometimes as a parent, you got to realize that they don't have a reason to be that afraid because they got you. But one day they won't.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they'll get there, just like you got there. Yeah.
A statement that you made. I think I'd like to know more about, and for you to share what you really mean by that. You said your stock is your character.
Well, I believe that you make money with, the Bible says, a good name is worth more than silver and gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the stock market. A company that has a good name, you tend to want to invest in, right?
Oh yeah.
And I've learned that I make more money sometimes because people call me because of my integrity. They'll call me because we know his marriage is solid, so we want to teach on marriage. I just did a session today with a group. They came in town and they said, "Hey, when you come in town," sometimes they'll come in town and ask me to speak when they come in town. But they're looking for people who have good names, and I think that's your stock. That's your ace in the hole. That's the thing that can really help you not only prosper. It's a good wealth development strategy. That's why our church, for example, there are things that we do that I believe become our stock and trade. For example, we start on time, we end on time. I mean, we just don't hardly ever go over. People, I found, view that as a value. They'll say, "Well, we can go to Pastor Rick because we know he's going to get out. We're not going to be there. It's an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. That seems short, but I don't know why you got to keep talking so long. And I think you can really get it down. But if you ever buy in the stock market, what you do is you go look at the portfolio and you look at the company, you look at the reputation. So you look at the church reputation. You start late, you don't know when you're going to get out. Bathrooms look bad, the sermons are scattered, the thoughts are scattered. You don't have any direction. Everything is last minute. Why would you invest in that stock? Why would you? I think people invest when they feel that you are worth the investment. And I think sometimes when they don't come, it means you're not worth the investment. And so instead of getting angry at the people, nobody wants to come to my church. Well, maybe your church is not worth coming to in their minds. And this is hard. This is hard to process. I'll give you one thing that I think is fascinating that's happening in the church that I think people struggle with. Wealth development in the church is different because wealth development is going to be tied to online, and it's going to be tied to AI. It's going to be tied to a number of different things. It's got to be convenient. We just have, by the way, a new app called Overcoming by Faith Ministries app. Brian, I don't know if we can put that in the chat or whatever. Overcoming by Faith Ministries app. Type that they can go get it at the App Store or wherever store you go. Brand new app, so cool. It's absolutely phenomenal, and it makes everything easy. You can give on it. You can. It looks snazzy. I like the way it looks too. It's a snazzy dude. And they upgraded it, and I thought, man, what a great thing! I thought, look at this. It's so cool. I don't know if you can see it all.
Oh yeah, it is
so
nice.
Cool. It's really cool, and it's got all these great features on it, and they simplified the way you do everything. The kids version is going to be updated. We're working on that too. We're going to have a whole new look. The sermon of the day, motivational moments, the Bible classes, everything is free. It's great. It's cool. So when people see, how easy you make it, and it helps them, then they invest in you. They'll come to your church, and what I found is they'll come online because it's thousands. I mean, when I tell you every month, it's thousands of people. So,
and people don't want to invest even in a secular job. They don't want to invest in you if your character is not good, and if you're not a worthy investment.
Well, I think churches have lied to people, religious people. Right now, we're in the middle of the biggest, the biggest mistake we've ever made in my lifetime. I'm not going to be really political. I'm just to make a point. Okay, we have to be good referees. We have to call balls and strikes. We have to say right and wrong. If you want people to invest in you, you want people to give you money, come and be in your church and all that, you have to tell the truth. And I don't think they do anybody any favors when they allow things to go on, be said, biases, racism, injustices to women, men, anybody, white people, black people, poor people, anybody. You have to care about everybody. You have to care about the poor. You have to care about people, the farmer who's up there in North Georgia trying to make it work. You have to care about the black folks in the neighborhood. You have to care about the people that are not represented. You have to care. And what's happening is, the church has proven, again, it doesn't call good balls and strikes. Now, I'm going to say something, and I don't mean no harm when I say this. Don't mean no harm. But the history is true. You can't destroy history. You have to learn from it. That's what helps you become wealthier, right? For 246 years, and this is from 1619 to 1865, 246 years, they saw slavery and did nothing. That's not a good balls and strikes. The church didn't do a good job with that. The way women have been treated. The poorest people in the world are women. You know who got the most benefit from DEI? Women. White women, as a matter of fact, to be honest. I mean, women. And so the whole idea that, and you don't have to fight me over it. If you don't believe in it, it's fine. I'm not going to fight you over it. So it is what it is. Here's what I believe is true, though. Wealth development is tied to fairness. Racism costs money. It costs money, denies people access, denies people opportunity. And I think churches, for example, in my opinion, bias is all get out. Just totally biased. 60% of their congregations are women. And they are anti. I have a deal coming in the fall. I'm going to do a set of teachings on women preaching, women in ministry. I am. I'm going to take it on. And I'm meeting with just the women. I told them, I want all the women to come out, and I'm gonna do a whole teaching on it. I got a whole book for it. I got a book, right? A whole book that we're gonna go through. And I just think it's just incredible to me. And some of you, I can hear you screaming out there, "What's the book? What's the book?" See, that's what's with you people. Every time I mention a book, I hear you in your brain screaming, we want to know, so you might as well tell us. This is the book I'm going to use. I just love this dude. I didn't know about him. It's a book called From Genesis to Jonia, Junia, and it's finding the Bible in Jonia, and Junia, if I'm saying it right. And that's somebody that they call, and it's a female name, but they were trying to make it a male name. But this is a study of what the Bible says about women. And the guy's name is Preston Sprinkle. That's from Genesis to John, Junia, from Genesis to Junia.
I always say Junior.
Junia. Yeah, that's right. That's how you say it. I can't get my brain right today. Junia. And Preston Sprinkle. And this guy's great. Might need to try to get him to come talk to us. I was really impressed. Great scholarly work. What I love? I love the Audible book, because he does these little talks at the end of each chapter where he says, man, that was a hard chapter to write, and here's why.
And you said Preston Sprinkle, right? Like a sprinkler system?
Right. And it's real technical in some ways, but it's wonderful. For me, it's good work, good scholarly work. So I'll do that, and I'm going to take it on and talk about it. But my point is, I think that the church's wealth is linked to women. And the way that you can't even stand in the pulpit. I thought that's amazing, but you can clean it. You can bring the pastor water, but I don't know. You can't stand in there and even read an announcement. It's like, stand down there on the side. I'm not again. I love you if you feel that way, but I'm just saying, I just think all that hinders your prosperity, especially with women in this culture who notice those kinds of biases.
Another question. I think I was going to ask this, but we're getting close to our time here. What does it feel like for you to make more money than you've ever made before?
Humbling and confusing. It has been confusing for me. Let me explain. For me to make a lot of money, if you serve a lot of people, so if I go someplace and I speak and they give me $2 a piece, I make more money than most people, right? In a day or in an hour. So that comes from sowing and reaping. You sow at a high level, you reap at a high level. But what I've learned is money doesn't make you better it makes some things easier and some things more complicated. One is the perception that people have. And I don't have as much money as people think because I've been giving all my life. I've learned how to hold on to my money now. But I was giving a third of my money away for years, a third, which was not God's will, by the way. God asked me to give away a tithe, but I was going crazy because I felt the Lord and all that. But I've since got sense and learned better. But He's blessed me despite my ignorance. But I think the guilt factor was a hindrance to my wealth development because I was always nervous that if I had it, I had to give it away. I call that prosperity guilt, where you give what you don't have. You give what, let's say somebody comes up to you and they say, hey, can you give me $1,000? And you got 1,000. And so you give it to them because you feel you're wrong if you don't. Now I don't feel bad. Now it's not my responsibility to just give you $1,000. So
did you have to get used to, like you said, you make money from preaching or whatever. Did you have to get used to that idea?
Yeah, I did. And again, it's unfortunate that people think that you should just serve them for free. But the Bible says the laborer is worthy of his hire. If he who does, I read the verse for Timothy, the elder who serves well, 1 Timothy 5 should get double honor, 1 Timothy 5:17. So I think it's important for you to be treated well, but it's also important for you to be humble about it. It's important for you to not carry it like a badge of superiority. And what I think some pastors have done, which is unfortunate, is I got me a car. Let me show you what I got. Let me show you my house. Let me show you my, all that stuff. I've never done that, and I never will. I think that prosperity is a tool that allows you to do good in the world. And I get to do cool things in private because I have $5 extra. And I think it's important to be able to do that. God gives you money to make you a vessel that he can use. And then he said, he can also, he gives you money and resources and you grow wealth so that you can do well. And I don't think he determines the wealth I grow. I think he shows me the options and I determine the wealth I grow.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I determine that.
Interesting thing here. Jules said that she has to, she speaks and ministers, whatever the right term is. We don't know what church sometimes, but it's like she has to get used to the church asking her, well, how much do you charge? Mm-hmm. How much do you charge to speak? Do you have a problem with the semantics of that?
No, I tell people if they ask me that, I said, what do you normally give? What is your
She says, I guess I feel like they should know. And that's not right nor true.
Well, let me give you. I went to Boston, I'll say city, one time to speak, and when I got there, this happened in Boston and happened in Chicago, 2 cities. And when I got there, their living arrangements were horrific. That's the only word I can describe it. I mean, it was Skid Row like. It was really bad. And I remember I took one of our guys with us on this trip, and he said, "We're not staying here, are we?" and I think for me, Joel, there are times that people just don't have a high enough vision. You have to lift their vision. And I remember one time it was in Chicago. I went there, and the guy, they asked me, they said, "Would you mind catching the train from the airport?" And I had never been there before, and I said, "Tell you what you do. Give me your address. I'll rent a car. I'll have a car pick me up and take me to you." And so, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. I said, well, so I'm now lifting their vision. Your first time having me come to a major conference and you asked me to catch the train. I just don't get that. They asked me to come to a place in Canada once, and they asked me, I said, well, what's your budget? And how does we work out the financial part of this? They said, well, our budget for the whole conference is $800. Now they had 800.
In Canada?
800 pastors coming. How many? Did you hear me? I said 800 pastors coming. So they have 800 pastors, and they want me to come. Their budget is $800, and I'm supposed to buy a plane ticket, a hotel, food for 2 or 3 days. No, I told them I can't do that. I said I'm paying to come see you. No. So what you do is you ask people what their fee is. And then if it's something that you can work with, you say, okay. If not, say, well, normally it would be better if you gave me at least this much for it to be worth my while. Um, but I think you put the onus on people to tell you. And sometimes what I don't like for people to do is ask me to do something, and then you get there and they've changed their mind and they want you to do it for free, or they don't want to pay for your expenses. That doesn't normally happen to me now, but I know people that happens to, especially musical guests. I've seen they go through a lot of that. Yeah.
Well, we have just, of course, a few more minutes here. So as we sort of come to the summer break, be back in August, I think is what you said. What would you, how would you summarize the most important things that we should be thinking about during the summer as it relates to our wealth and all the things that we've talked about over a long time?
Well, let me say a couple of things. One is you're going to hear from me both in June and July, but it's going to be what we call prosperity moments, where I'm going to send you a simple devotional moment. I may talk 5 minutes, I may talk 10 minutes, but it'll be something that you can simply, digest. I'll mention some more books and stuff that I'm working on over the summer, but I'm taking a break from this format just to kind of give us a chance to reset. So look forward to that coming back in August. But you'll hear prosperity starting in June. You'll start hearing prosperity moments where I'll share a quick moment with you. And if you have questions, you can always email me and we can talk about that at pastor@overcomingbyfaith.org. That's pastor@overcomingbyfaith.org. Now, that's again, pastor@overcoming. They'll put that up for you. pastor@overcomingbyfaith.org. The most important thing that I hope we do is sit down and think through what our financial dream is, what our wealth development strategy is. That's what we just had a meeting with our staff about that. And I plan to have a more comprehensive meeting with myself about what my strategy is. What do I want to accomplish? What are the things that I want to do for my future? And I want you to be a little self-concerned. I want you to sit down and say, what do I want for me? And start writing out what that's going to look like. In my life, I'm thinking about what staff I need to accomplish the mission we have. What range of salaries do I want my staff to have? What can I do to make sure that they are rewarded well? And what are the assets that we have that we can use differently than we've used before? Some assets we were going to use one way, we decided to use it another way. Who can I partner with and build other streams of income? There's all kinds of levels of those discussions. So for some of you, it's some property that needs to be renovated. For some of you, it's a cash asset that you ignored and you've not kept up with. It's time to go back and look at how we're managing that cash asset. For some of you, it is buying a home. You've lived in rental property forever. It's time to begin to at least try. And some of my investments will be travel to take some time. One example is the trainer. Getting a personal trainer for me was an investment that I made because I want to be at a certain level of health. I realized that I'm 68 years old, and I said I'm 12 years from 80. That really got me. I was talking to one of our members, and I don't know. She told me she was 75, and I started calculating. I said, I'm 12 years from 80. Wow, I better really get focused here. Because I know a lot of people between now and 80, they go down the river, boy. I mean, can't move. It's just like, oh no. I'll tell you the sidebar. My trainer, he said to me, he's a young guy. He looks like a football player. He's a really great guy. And I won't say his name because I don't want people bugging him. But he said something to me. He said, you're in pretty good shape now. Being 68 years old. He said, you can bend and he said, you don't have any deficits, big pains and stuff. And so he told me, so since you're in such good shape, I got to work how to put it on you a little bit. I said, okay. so like I said, you put it on me, man. I'm feeling it. I go back tomorrow. I was like, okay.
That's a pretty good compliment, though.
It is. He was telling one of his other clients who's a doctor, he said, I got this new dude, he's 68, and he's got no deficits. He can bend down, he can stretch out. But then I'm running into my limits because that's what his goal is, to push me to those new limits, right? But that's an investment. my money is invested in my health so that I won't be paying higher doctor bills.
Mm-hmm.
See, so there's a financial, hook in there that I'm working on. I'm working on creating other means of income, other streams. I can't pastor forever. And I have to understand that I have to give it over to somebody one day. And so what's my plan? People who are going to retire, they often don't plan. I hear that all the time, Sheila. They don't plan for retirement.
Mm-hmm.
They just go retire. And so that's not what I'm doing. I'm building my ship already. I'm building my ark like Noah.
Mm-hmm.
I already started. And I think I'm about 10 years out, maybe-ish. We'll see. Maybe less, but 10 is the target, thereabout. And we'll see. I'm 68, so that's 78. We'll see. Maybe I'll get to 80. We'll see. But let me tell you, I got people in my church now. Let me tell you,
That's
87,
right.
87 years old, and they are inspiring me because they're in great shape. I mean, they're working. Got people working here, 87 years old, working for me today. And they
And you
come to
really
work.
wouldn't know it unless they told you.
No,
With
you
the way
wouldn't
they
know.
move around and the way they
No.
look, the way they dress, just everything.
No, and our oldest member is 101, and she's amazing. I mean, she inspires me all the time. And she said, "Who told you you was old? You not old." So I'm building wealth strategies from here, new plans, new ways of making money, new ways of doing things, limiting what I travel and do so that it's more focused and aimed. And so I'm excited about my future. Yep, I am. So, are there any more questions you have for me tonight before we pray?
No,
Okay.
I feel like
Well,
we've asked you a lot of questions.
You've been really having fun. And let me just say to you as I close out here, I believe that one of the mistakes I made in my life when it comes to money and finance, if I can just talk to you for a minute, is I think I didn't understand the power of it. That money gives you the power to do amazingly good things in the world. You can help people. You can change lives. And with money, you can hire people like Sheila to work for you, and you can get people that can really contribute to what you're doing. And that's why wealth is a good thing. It's a healthy thing to have resources and to have facilities and to have, people that, like Brian in the background there. You can't see Brian, but he's amazing. And Brandon's back there.
Brandon.
And they got Caitlin and Olivia and some other folks working just in the media department. Phenomenal people. And the goal is to raise resources to have better equipment, more of everything. And then that way we can reach more people. I just want to thank God for being the leader of a church that has that kind of vision. But I also want to say this to you. Some of you right now, you're praying for things and God can never get it to you because you don't have the vision for it. You don't have the will. I think, Gila, we lie to ourselves. And I'm trying not to lie to me. I'm trying not to lie to me. I'm saying, Temple, come on now. Tell yourself the truth. Don't sit here and say you want to be healthy. You want more money, but you're not saving anything. There's no strategy, there's no plan. What you need to do is get you a blank piece of paper, right? Piece of paper, and say, Ricky's plan, Susan's plan, Barbara's plan, our family plan. You may not have the answers for all of it, but you walk by faith, not by sight, right? What you do is you write it down and say, this is what I want. And so right now, I know that storms are going to come. I know that challenges are going to come. I know that no matter what I have, no matter money or anything, there are going to be challenges. I love reading the stories of celebrities and wealthy people and to read the behind the scenes pain they've gone through, the challenges they faced and the difficulties, but how God has always come through. And so in my life, I've seen that. And so my prayer for you, my prayer for all of you who are watching today and watching on live or demand, that God would prosper you and that you would open your heart and believe that God has a plan for your life and that he's going to get you to the place he wants you to be. And listen to this, to the place you want to be. And I've learned that some of what I wanted wasn't healthy. Some of what I wanted wasn't good. But God took my hand and guided me to a better place than I could have imagined. So before I pray, are there any more questions before I pray?
Well, a couple of things. John says the app updated. It looks pretty smooth, better than the old one, and easy to use. So that's good. And Jules said that she would really like to know your thoughts if you graded our churches similar to hotels. She'd like to know your thoughts on that.
If you graded our churches, oh, they'd be 2-star. They
Two
wouldn't be.
star.
They wouldn't be. No, they're the bathrooms aren't the bathrooms, Lord Jesus. That take you down 3. That right there take you down. The length, the organizational structure is hard to. You don't know when it starts. You don't know when it ends. It's just and the follow through is not always good. I mean, I think we try hard. Let me be personal. If you said, is Overcoming by Faith a 5-star church? No, I think we try to be, but I think sometimes we're maybe 3.5. What do you mean? It's hard to be a 5. It's hard because of the structure of church. It's not that churches don't want to be, but it's like the trying to make a BMW a Mercedes. It just doesn't have the tools. What I'm trying to do is change the structure, change the tools, change the mechanics, and that's what helps it be better. You're not gonna have a 5-star marriage with 2 and 1-star people. You got to upgrade the thinking of the couple. You got to upgrade their vision. You got to upgrade the thinking of the pastor. You have to upgrade the thinking of the members of the church. They want the church to have money, but they won't give. They want, but you've seen families. I've seen families that, man, there's a lot of 4 or 5-star people in those families. I do funerals and you can see it. Some of them come in here and they are like ready to go, bond together in pain, but they get, I just did one the other day. They get to it. And then their families come in, they just ghetto, and they just fight and they fuss over everything. And I don't like that casket. And I think they should. Well, you ain't put no money toward the casket. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just all this incredible Motel 6 mindset. So a lot of churches have a Motel 6 mindset. They do. And the pastors, the sermons aren't clear. The messages are all over the place. And he's preaching on this and that and the other. And he's more focused on getting done and having a moment than he is on educating you for the future. So if you listen to 50 of his sermons, he don't know what he said. He couldn't tell you what he said.
Pastor Rick, you have stirred up a lot of conversation about rating Overcome by Faith as a 3.5. They said that Overcome by Faith is a 5-star church, one. And Jay Money, one of our members, said, no, Pastor, give us some more credit than that now. Give us at least a 4.3.
I would, but I want us to stay humble. And I think it's the Bible said, let your praise proceed from the mouth of others, right? Let other people say 5-star. But I'm not going to say we're better than every church I'm not. I see areas we can improve in. So if you say 5, I'll say 5 for you. That's fine. Because
and
remember,
one good one here from JG. What would you do financially if you could start over from 35? That's his age now. He says, I feel like 35 is a pivotal age, so I'm just trying to gain any knowledge you can spare, Pastor Rick.
The bottom line, dude, is just do what's in front of you and do it well. Just go to work, save your money, take care of your physical health, live holy, live clean. Don't be sleeping around. Don't be chasing after women. Don't be, do what God told you to do, and do it His way. And that's what you do. That's how you get there, my friend. Be holy, honor God. Now, let me get back to this as we close. We got to end on time now because I got 2 minutes. I got 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Let me say this. I know that when I rated our church this night, some of you are shocked that I didn't say 5. I know. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna tell you something. The Bible said, humble yourself and God will exalt you. Now, let other people say it. Let your praises come from the mouth of others, the Bible says. But always stay humble. And I think, remember, if you're 5, where are you going to go? Where can you go? You can't go any higher, right? My point is we still have room to grow. And I want us to always feel that way. I do. I had a professor one time. He told me, he said, Temple, you know what? I'm gonna grade you harder than everybody else.
Oh, wow.
He did tell me that. And he did, the turkey. But I still left with the 4.0, but I think it's important to have, see, I dropped that in there. I still feel it's important to always be striving. And I don't even feel like I'm a 5 husband. I feel like I'm always striving. That's my opinion. So let me pray for you. People writing me notes. What are they saying to me? Mean things. What are they saying?
Pastor, I see a 4.8.
All right.
Oh,
Thank you. I receive it from you. I receive it from you. Thank you. But that's
and
what I want to be.
has it ever got exhausting to stay in the faith and press forward through valleys of life?
Sure, but that's part of what makes you strong, like going to the gym. It's when you press through the pain, my friend, like I'm doing today. That's how
And I
you
think
get
the
there.
last one that'll close us is let's have a conversation about this another time about the categories for grading the churches. So,
Well, I just did that because you said it, Jewel. That ain't my desire. I try not to do that. I did that just for you one time. I don't plan on doing that anymore, but I just did it for you. All right. Let's pray. Father, I thank you for our time together. I ask your blessing upon our time. I pray the grace of God upon us. We lead with faith and confidence. In Jesus' name, amen.
amen.
Listen, got to go. Time's up. And make sure that you understand we're going to send you these prosperity moments, and they'll help you throughout the next 2 months. And then we'll come back in August strong and be ready to go with some special guests. We'll talk about property ownership. We're going to talk about wills. We're going to talk about all those kind of things coming up. And so I'll see you later. Have a great day. Bye-bye, y'all. Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Be blessed.